episode of Executive Talk. Those who are watching on Facebook Live or if you're watching on TV or on YouTube, thank you so much for joining us today. Today we're in continuation of our series right now, which I know that you'll find very intriguing and something that very thought-provoking, and hopefully can shed some light on some areas within your business. Here at Executive Talk, our goal and our mission is to deal with the heart and soul of your business. So we want to constantly remind you of that, so you kind of understand where our messages are coming from and what our aim is. All right, so let me go ahead and introduce you to the second part of this particular series that we're going to end today. I want to take you guys back to what story are you playing out? What does that mean to you? And I'll go ahead and remind you of the series in a second here, but what does that mean to you? What story are you playing out? Were you bullied as a kid? Were you told that you're not good enough? Were you told that you're a troublemaker? Were you constantly told that you're bad? Okay, there's something impactful of these particular statements that can register with you. If you're an adult, just because you're an adult does not mean you're far removed from these statements. They can still, because again, they've registered in your heart. And if they register in your heart, they register in your memory. And a lot of us are still struggling with moving forward because of these statements. Because this could have been your past. This could have been what your reality was. So if that was your reality, your heart only knows what it knows. So that becomes your present day. So a lot of our business owners that we're experiencing, that we're seeing out here, there are a lot of business owners who have a lack of movement. We have some business owners that are doing way too much. You can't find that you're either on one side of the fence where you're not doing anything or you're doing way too much. But all of it stems from this particular place right here that we're trying to escape from. In Proverbs 4:23, it says, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." Everything you do flows from it. Think about that. So if these things are happening with you, what is flowing from it? Just a few seconds ago, I said you're not far removed. Just because you're an adult now does not mean you're removed from these things. Okay? These are some things that are still playing out. Above all else, guard your heart. But as a kid, can you guard your heart? Not at all. Okay? So everything you're doing is still flowing from it if it hasn't been healed yet. Business ownership is a really good place to hide your pain or your value. I want to go ahead and reiterate that. Business ownership is a really good place to hide your pain or value. See, nobody really questions you as a business owner. That's one of the great things about being a CEO. A lot of people will question, well, why did you become a business owner? Those things have some impact, and I want you to revisit the last show and understand where I was talking about. But again, there is something about business ownership that takes you out because you are a risk taker. You're taking a risk that a lot of people don't necessarily want to take. And there's nothing wrong with it. That's just how you're driven, and that's where everything is going. Okay? But again, it's a good place to actually receive a lot of extra and still not to deal with what's going on. And today's topic is devalue. That's what the series that we're talking about today. We're talking about devalue. Value is one of the most important things that you need in order to even run your business correctly. Okay, there's a lot of hidden things that can happen to you without this place of value. So, with that being said, Genesis 2:9, the Lord God made all kinds of trees grow out of the ground, trees that were pleasing to the eye and good for food. Okay? Sorry about that. Now, I want you guys to remember something here on Genesis 2:9. There is something about this particular statement that it doesn't really pop, and it doesn't say, okay, it's one of those verses in the Bible that you just read over and you just kind of keep on going through. Okay? But again, let's look at this again. The Lord God made all kinds of trees grow out of the ground, trees that were pleasing to the eye and good for food. There is something up until this point of 2:9 that when God created everything, he was like, that is very good, that is very good, that's good, that's good, that's good, that's good. And once he made mankind, it was very good. It was, and one thing that one thing that God made for us is he made it pleasing. He made it to a point where we had everything that we needed. We were at our utmost value at that time. Now, something happened to us on Genesis 3:6, which in a lot of our shows, if you're a first-time viewer, as you go back and watch some of the archive shows, you notice that I'll allude to these because this is where a lot of the challenges even started in the first place. When the woman saw that the fruit of the tree was good for food and gaining wisdom, she took some of it and ate it. She also gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate it. So let's think about that. They had everything. Everything was set up. And all of a sudden, we chose a devalued place in order to walk our lives out. This is when everything changed on us. Once we made this decision, when everything was good, we had enough, we weren't missing anything, and our value was at our best, then we chose this way of life by falling, and then everything became devalued. Everything from a fallen place is always operating from a devalued point of view in God's eyes. Now, in Genesis 3:17, cursed is the ground because of you. Through painful toil, you will eat food from it all the days of your life. So I want you to pay attention because I have in this, in parentheses, painful toil. See, the thing about us is that even though they fell, they were still able to work, but again, they were operating in painful toil. They were operating under a curse. So that's the same thing with us. When we're operating from a fallen point of view, we're still in operation, but we're operating under painful toil. We're not operating in the highest value possible of our lives. And that's part of regaining our value to help us understand biblically, scripturally, where our life should be aligned with what we're actually dealing with. Your value can be compromised in the matter of a choice. That's one thing that we need to understand about this whole thing. Your value. Okay, so let's go back to Genesis 3:6 and let's go back to 2:9. Everything was just fine here in 2:9, and then 3:6, once we chose a different lifestyle, our value became compromised. Our whole lifestyle changed. We got disconnected from God, our value dropped, and it was just a matter of a choice. And that's what makes life so difficult, because from the time that you wake up until the time you go to sleep, your access to choices are over and over again. And our job is to choose life. But again, if we're operating off of devalue, well, then we're choosing death. It becomes a currency of our own. Now, anytime we choose to be disobedient, what are we illustrating in our lives? What are we illustrating for us? We're illustrating two things, that we're still fallen, and we're also illustrating the value we have on our own lives. It's interesting. One thing I've learned about this thing called value is that when we are away from God, we're going to do every single thing. Everything we're choosing is coming from a place of trying to figure out what is our value. Those choices is trying to replace that value because of our disconnection with God. That's how that stuff works. That's why this thing that's why the title of the show is called Devalue. Because everything, all of our currency is we're trying to replace God because we haven't become obedient to that. And because we haven't become completely obedient to that, that's where we struggle. I want you to remember something. Don't mistake your skill set for value. And what do I mean by that? Well, I can be a fantastic salesman, and I can be the top of a company, but that's my skill set, but that's not my value. There is an absolute difference. How do I know that I'm not operating off of something that I currently have, but I'm using it in the wrong way in a devalued place? Because I've taken control of it. Because again, remember, something about the fall is we started taking control over our own lives. That's where idolatry comes from. Okay? So again, don't mistake your skill set for value. This is where we can get really confused and really get caught up here on earth, is because we can make a lot of money based off our skill set, but it's not coming from a value place. There's an absolute difference. There's a fallen road. I'll go ahead and help you understand this. It always starts out with a heart condition. The way that we started the show is we talked about various heart conditions, things that you may have experienced in your youth and that maybe you haven't dealt with yet. But you have a heart condition. So what happens in your whole entire life in this, because you have a heart condition that you're unaware of? Okay, you may have read a few books, you may have went to see a psychiatrist, you may have had all these circumstances, but you're still unaware of what was the seed that was planted that created this heart condition. So truly, you're operating unaware. You're not really for sure. So if you're not for sure, well then one thing is for sure is you've actually never met yourself. I'll let that sink in for a minute. You have never met yourself. You know yourself from a painful toil situation. You know yourself from a devalue situation. You know all the things that you have battled through and you're trying to survive through, but you never really truly met yourself. And if that means you've never met yourself, has anybody else met you? Think about that. So then let's take it to the next level on this fallen road. Unknowingly, you are choosing death. Okay? If you're choosing a fallen road, you're automatically choosing death. No matter how much you've gone to church or whatnot, with this, when you're struggling with value, you're automatically choosing death. It's just because part of your habit, that's what you know. Because again, you have never met yourself. You're still dealing with that heart condition. Okay? And this is when you start to strive in this place, you start to suffer harder. Okay? The two things about this road right here in this middle. If you start to manifest, if you start to build a humongous empire, let's say as a business owner, well then now you're further removed from this heart condition. That's the dangerous about striving in this place. If you start striving in the fallen road, you start becoming further and further removed from this place right here. Now, there's a lot of people who, maybe even like myself, who I didn't have the opportunity to really strive in that place. I suffered harder. So when I suffered harder, I wasn't too far away from the heart condition, so I had time to actually look at it and actually pay attention to where's my value. When I was doing merchant services or credit card processing as a business owner, yes, I started to find my value because I knew I loved B2B work. But guess what? That wasn't biblical value. I thought that was my value. But the pain and suffering and challenges I had within that, okay, I started suffering harder. So again, the third tier of that is once you become completely removed, then you're really far gone. This is a dangerous place right here on this fallen road when it comes to value. It's important for us to really address this value situation and become very real about it. Because if we don't, again, the enemy will jump on that and help us become far removed from this particular place of the heart condition. One of my favorite quotes, and I've been just in a few conversations with friends, we've been talking about this for quite a bit. And I want to go ahead and read this quote from Marion Williamson. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that frightens us. Think about it. We've heard it maybe on a TV show. We've probably quoted it a few times in our own personal lives. But how often have you thought about that statement as how does it actually affect you specifically? Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. So let's go ahead and break down this quote a little bit. Our deepest fear is that we are not inadequate. So here's our deepest fear, okay? And that is not that we're inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we're powerful beyond measure. Where is that for us? That's the value statement right there. That is value right there. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light. We're scared of light. Not our darkness that frightens us. It's our light. It's our value that actually scares us. So remember earlier in our conversation, I mentioned that a lot of us are stuck in a trap. We don't go anywhere, or we go way too far down the wrong road. And again, where does this light belong to? Who's going to help us illustrate what this light really is capable of? That's where God comes in, people. That's where God comes in to guide that light, because you don't know what to do with that light. Let's just be real about that. It is too much. It is a real thing, and it's way too much for us to actually understand and articulate where we're actually supposed to go on this earth. So this quote is absolutely for real. This reconciliation process here, when we get to have that opportunity to really establish value, is when the heart and God are back communicating or back connected. When we have gone to repentance, when we have gone through the wilderness, when we have submitted ourselves above all else to God, is when we can establish value. This reestablishment in this particular show is, Lord, who am I? Why am I here? Okay, that is a question that we all have. Why are we here? So in the meantime, when we're questioning this, when we don't have this established value, in the meantime, all of our work is based off trying to figure out why we are here. So again, that's where that devalued place comes from, because we're trying to figure out, well, I'm good at this, or I'm good at that, and oh, guess what? I'm kind of good at that too. So you start to consume all this stuff because you're trying to figure out, why am I here? The Lord will specifically say part of the reason why he died on the cross is to establish value. Because once you establish value, guess what? Now you get to find your light. You're not going to be scared of it anymore, because now you have a guide. So this brings us to kingdom business. Who are you? This is starting to develop the value. Who are you? That's a question that you should be asking yourself every single day. If you haven't asked it yet, ask it today. Ask it right now. Who are you? Not your name, but who are you in the kingdom? What do you represent? Once you start getting sold on that, what you're actually doing is you're finally fed up with death. You're finally fed up with devalued and working up and developing your own lifestyle that is ending you in no result. There's no result to developing your own lifestyle. Let's just put it to you that way. We are taking a huge risk by trying to develop our own lifestyle without God. That's the risk taker in business ownership. Okay? So your spiritual gifting will start to show itself. Guess what? There's your why. What we actually end up doing, business owners and people, that's our light. It is our light. Our spiritual gifting is our light. It is the thing that's going to shine the most. It's going to develop the most impact, and it's going to keep flowing. It's going to give us the most value. You know, when you go somewhere, if you have a purpose and there's a why there, you do everything you can in that environment to make it happen because you figured out your why. See, a lot of us, for example, if you're an HR director, let's say you're in the HR department, don't you know part of your skill set, the reason why you're able to do HR so well is possibly because you have a spiritual gifting of healing? You have the ability to reconcile differences and problem solve and maybe coach and teach. Maybe you're operating off of 2 different spiritual giftings that you have. Did you know that's probably the reason why you found that as a safe place is because now your spiritual gifting is starting to flourish a little bit? You find value in that? It's all about value. And so again, your search for value is what you're looking for. It's your why. All your activities, once you actually understand what your spiritual gifting is, all for the kingdom now. Now you're running a kingdom-led business. Because again, now you're being led. Now God is guiding your light and saying, hey, this is where we need to go Okay, I want to keep on showing you what your light, how effective your light is. I want to show you why I chose you specifically to be born and at this age and at this time frame. And the reason why you're being obedient, I want to show you what you're capable of through me. Not through you, through me. Let me show you how big your light is. Let me show you how valuable you are to me. And there is a part of you that will be very upset that you're like, why did I take so long to actually go and try to just follow the Bible? If I wouldn't, have you ever said this statement? If I would have known, that is the most frustrating statement you can ever say. If I would have known this, I would have did this. And that's one thing I found out in my journey. I'll explain to you in a second here. So Proverbs 18:21. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and they that love it shall eat of the fruit thereof. So, however, even though God needs to heal the narrative in your life. These words, these impacts onto your heart have created a narrative. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. So if you've had these words in your life, did you have death in your life or life? You experienced death. Without this healing, your narrative still exists. It's still operating under death. But the healing of the narrative and changing that perspective and changing the value statement and bringing life into your heart will X these things out. And then you can conclusively say, I'm not going to be bullied as a kid. I am good enough. See, these statements, you don't even have to do affirmations because God is creating that affirmation for you. Okay? You know that you are good enough. You're not a troublemaker. Okay, that was pain that was happening. You constantly say that you're bad. No, I am good. I am valuable. Once you get to that place, you start to walk into your light. You start to meet yourself all over again. It will be refreshing once God starts to heal the narrative in your life. And so that life is spoken into your life. Okay, and then that you can eat the fruit of that. One of the most precious assets to carry is the knowledge of your spiritual gifting. It is important. It will change your whole dynamic. We're talking about renew the mind within the Bible. Well, if I don't know what my spiritual gifting, I can't renew anything. Now that I know my spiritual gifting, for example, for myself is teaching, well, guess what? I can renew my mind. I understand that I have a spiritual gifting. I have a reason to be here. So that means I have boundaries to maintain because I want to make sure, because I've been looking for 39 years of my life, I've been looking to figure out why am I here. I finally found it. I am going to walk that course out. And there's no other reason to go left or go right. I am in that right lane because I know where my spiritual gifting lies. Now, Luke 15:21 through 24. The son said to him, Father, I have sinned against the heaven against you. I am no longer worthy of being called your son. So obviously when the son came to him, he had his head down and felt guilty and all that other stuff was going on with him. But the father said to the servant, quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. So they began to celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and found. I want you to think about that for a minute. There is a celebration once you decide to choose God and choose life and actually want to know what your value is and what your true light is. There is a celebration in heaven going on right now. There's excitement going on. Now, people in your life, they may not be that excited for you. They're like, well, what do you mean? Or why would you do that? I mean, not you. You may have some of those comments, but because you changed the course and you repented and turned the other direction, there is an absolute celebration and it happens immediately. Heavens are excited that you are headed towards this direction because now the heavens know that maybe we can impact some more people to find their value. What is your value? There's in 1 Corinthians 12, 7 through 11, there's the message of wisdom. Maybe you have the message of knowledge. Maybe it's your faith. Maybe it's the gifts of healing. Maybe it's the miraculous powers, speaking in different tongues, distinguishing between spirits, the gift to teach. Which one is yours? Those currencies, meaning these gifts are currencies. These are the things that will flow through your rest of your life and flow through you to others, but it's all driven by God. But again, the point is a kingdom business. Are you operating in a kingdom business where God is the head, you're a secondary, and you realize that your spiritual gifting will reach God's people? Okay? You're no longer searching anymore because, again, your kingdom business is being guided by God. And there's something special about knowing that, yes, you're doing the things in the right direction. There's no longer guilt on your end. There's no longer shame. You're redeveloping everything within yourself because that value becomes infectious. Because other people are searching for the same thing that you were lost. They're going to be curious as to how you found it. Now, they're going to be watching to see if you're just joking or if you're really serious about it. But if they start seeing you become very serious, they'll be very curious about their own lives and to find their own value. So your business impact is bigger than just creating a business. It's actually finding your value first, finding your spiritual gifting, finding God, and have Him guide your kingdom business. Now, how would I end this message? I was thinking about this, and it's really not even the end of the message, it's just actually a challenge. The challenge is today. Will you find your value? Will you change your course with no fear? Will you go find your light and stop being scared of it? Because I actually need your help in your value. I need to know what you have, because maybe there's something there we can connect on. The world needs your value. But are you going to go for your value and go towards your light today? When is the time? There's no time like the present. You're impactful to a lot of people, and your value means everything to everybody. So we need you to consistently spread this message. We need your help in spreading this message and finding your light. I want you to do me a favor. Follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and also Twitter. But in the meantime, I have to get back to work. You guys have a wonderful day.